Good evening and welcome to Hardin County Commissioners Court. This is a special meeting to discuss the annex building project. At this time, all members of the court are present and we have a quorum, and this meeting is called to order. Everyone will please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Pelt will deliver the invocation.
Our dear Father, we thank you for being blessed in this life. We thank you we have an opportunity to come here to discuss the business of Hardin County. Pray that you would give us wisdom and guidance. Pray that you'd be with our men and women that are in uniform, especially those that are serving overseas. Be with this nation. Forgive us where we fail you, we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 on the agenda is to conduct a public hearing to discuss plans for construction and financing costs to construct a new courthouse annex building. This is our second of 2 public hearings on this matter. I'm going to try to keep this one a little shorter, but we certainly want to make sure you have all the information that you come here for, and if there are any questions, we're going to answer any questions that you have. But I think the way I'd like to start out is, does anybody have a question as to why we need to build a new annex building, or does everyone kind of know the history behind why we're even talking about this project? If anyone has a question, if you'll just raise your hand, I'll be glad to answer it.
My question.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
My question is, how come more of the public doesn't know about it? Everyone I talked to today, I've asked about, and
Yes, sir.
nobody knows anything about what's going on. They didn't even know it was taking place.
This is a project that we've been talking about for a little over a year and a half. I want to say we started discussing a new building towards the end of 2014.
It was August 2014.
Well, that's when the air testing took place, was in August, and I think we have a letter that was submitted by myself to Commissioners Court before I was on the court, and the letter recommends that the court explore building a new building because the cost to replace to remediate the mold over there. It's also would cause asbestos abatement, and the cost to do all of it would need to be done to make that building so that it could be inhabited by the employees and the citizens was between 1.640 and 2.050 to fix that building. And first of all, we don't really need a building that size. It's nearly 40,000 square feet. A building at the time we thought somewhere around 10,000 square feet, and that's what the new building is designed at, a little over 10,000 square feet. I think 10,600 and some odd square feet. And we can build a new building for less than the highest estimate that we received on fixing the old building. So this has been discussed at several commissioners' courts meetings. We put them in the newspaper. We put it in the Facebook post and things like that.
People still, they're not knowing anything.
Can you think of any better way that we could have gotten this information out to the public?
My wife works and she knows nothing about it. I started asking her and she doesn't know anything.
Yes, sir.
So, I was just curious about that.
The TV news media has picked this up a few times and put it, the Beaumont Enterprise has had it several times, so has the Silsbee Bee, and they're here today. The Lumberton Ledger has also done the same thing. We've had 6 town hall meetings all throughout the county. That was all highly publicized in the newspaper. If you have a better idea for us to get this out, I'm glad to hear it, because we want everybody to know about it. Sure, I understand.
The only place I saw was Silsbee Bee.
Yes, sir.
And we've been back in Silsbee 2 years now.
Yes, sir.
And that's the only place that I saw it. But since I got your attention, you want a
Yes, sir.
question, I'll ask another question.
Sure.
Chris and I were talking beforehand, and he said the building was gonna be built in the parking lot back here. Yeah, I get turned around when I go in the building, I'm sorry. Why is it gonna be there opposed to where the old hospital was? Why not demolish that and build it there?
Sure, it's more convenient for the employees that have to come back and forth to operate with the treasurer's office, the auditor's office, and other offices with the courthouse. Safer for the employees to come back and forth from the courthouse to the annex building. We already owned most of the property. We have bought 2 additional lots, which was done last summer sometime. We bought 2 additional lots in anticipation of this project. Whether we did it now or 10 years down the road,
What about
it
parking?
would be needed, sir.
About parking?
The parking lot's already there.
I mean, in other words, you're gonna build to the back of the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, that was my main question, was
Yes.
how you were, cause I know when I come and the court's in session,
Yes, sir.
I park way out there. And
Well,
I was just curious.
The plan is that that parking lot will be utilized for customers only, and the employees will park in the parking lot across the street next to Hooks Title.
Okay.
There's also a plan in the works that all the employees that currently park in our main parking lot out here by the tax office will start parking either over across the street or in the parking lot over here on the west side.
Okay.
So we are trying to rectify that
Yeah.
situation as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So to kind of make sure everyone is aware, the main problem with our annex building is a mold problem. We have other issues as well as far as electrical, the heating and AC system over there, which is the source of the mold problem that we have in the building. And it was determined by Commissioners Court in late 2014 to go ahead and explore building a new building. And so that's what we have been working on this since that time, and we've probably had discussion on this in at least probably, I was gonna say probably about 8 of our regular meetings, and we've had some special meetings about it as well. And unless there's any more questions about why we need a new building, I'd like to talk about how we determine how we will finance the cost of the new building, because I really think that's most of the concern, unless anyone has any other concerns. So we've talked about several different options to finance the construction of the new building. One option was to go out for certificates of obligation for the full amount, roughly $1.8 million. Not everybody on the court would agree to do that, and understandably so. There were citizens that had asked us, and even some of ourselves had wanted this to be a decision made by the voters. The plan was to put it on the agenda, on the ballot for May of this year, and then Mr. Goodson is here. He's our legal counsel on this matter. Informed us we could not do that. The earliest we could put it on the ballot would be November. It's something that really needed to have already started. We should have started this project already. We have some department personnel who are displaced, and one of them is here. The department head for the WIC department is here. She has people that work in the hallway of the building over there. Some of them work in the old, what used to be the JJEP school. They have, since this came about, they've moved to the courthouse. They're on the 3rd floor now. And then we just have some others in there that are concerned and wanna get out of the building as soon as we can get a new facility built for them to move into. We also wanna make sure we're providing a safe place for the public who come for the services provided by the annex building as well. So we made the determination, I want to say back in February of this year, that what we would do is wait until our outside audit was completed to see exactly where we stood as far as our surplus amount. And Angela, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe our surplus amount is at $3.89 million. Is that correct?
Was $3,912,834 before the certificates of obligation is considered.
Thank you very much. So a little over 3.9. And what we had decided, an option that I threw out that I think pretty much everyone agreed on, was to go certificates of obligation for 1.1 million and use our surplus to fund the rest of the project. And if any of the commissioners would like to talk on that while I'm at this point, I'll be glad to let you jump in if anybody would like to. So that was the final decision that we made, but we wanted to have these public hearings to bring this information to the public. It's not a requirement, but it's something that we decided was important. We had a morning meeting last week, and this is our evening meeting. And I just hope that anybody that has any questions has either come or called. I think we've answered a lot of questions by telephone. Some people have come in on the side and didn't want to talk in an open meeting, and that's fine and understandable. And we've answered every question so far to everyone's satisfaction. To my knowledge, we don't have anybody that opposes the project, although I'm sure there may be. They have not voiced it. And that is the route that we intend to go, that we will issue certificates of obligation for 1.1 million. The increase in tax rate is 1/10 of 1 cent, and that would be in its first year. We currently have an outstanding obligation, certificates of obligation on the county jail that was, the capacity or size was increased, number of beds was increased back in 2007. That pays off in 2023, and at that time, that's when this note increases to finalize for those last 3 years to finish paying that off. And if I'm not mistaken, even those 3 years, the note is not as high as our current jail note that we're paying at this time. And We've tried to be very frugal. We've tried to, we're not buying a whole bunch of new furniture for the new building. We'll use the furniture that we have. We may have to buy some new chairs for the waiting area out front. And we'll have to furnish the EOC. We don't have an EOC at this time. It's something that we've needed. And this building will have one. It will also serve as the meeting room over there. And the health department is going to be able to furnish the EOC because they are involved in any type of emergency operations that we have. And they have grant funds to fund 100% of the cost for any furniture that we need for the EOC. So that's another plus in my opinion. We have tried to go out for grants. They're just not out there like they used to be. We've applied for 3 different grants. One of them was do you remember, Angela, the one that we applied for through the health department? It was a national grant that we applied for through the Agriculture Commission.
Right.
Is that
that's
correct?
That is
We
correct.
also applied for a Texas Department of Agriculture grant for this project. Both of those were declined. And we will continue to try to seek grants for this project. If something comes along before we get too far down the road that we're able to use grant money to pay for this project, I've talked to Representative White and others, and they have been on the lookout for anything that would work to help us pay for this. And if something came along, that's something we would certainly jump on as well to keep from having to burden the taxpayer any more than we have to. But it's my opinion that we've done our homework on this. We spent a lot of time on it, and this is a project that we really should have already started, but we all wanted to be sure that we were doing the right thing, and we gave a little extra time as well to try to find grants that would pay for it, so we did not have to go into our own pockets or bond issue or certificates of obligation in order to pay for the building. At this time, what I'd like to do is open it up to the commissioners, starting with Commissioner Cooper. Do you have anything you'd like to add? And Commissioner Cooper is the project manager for this project.
Thank you, Judge. I, along with the gentleman that spoke early, was kind of surprised whenever we first started these town hall meetings and everything at the lack of citizens that didn't show up, because I know our citizens are very concerned about how we spend taxpayer dollars, and each commissioner and the judge up here ourselves are tax-paying citizens too, and we do nothing behind closed doors. We want the public involved, and I was surprised that we didn't have more public come. I attended one with Mr. Pelt in Sire Lake, and then myself and the judge attended one in Silsbee at the community center, and I think we had about 15 to 20 people that was there, and I was surprised, at the low turnout. But I wish we had more citizens like yourself that would get involved and ask questions and everything. Whenever this first started, the court, of course, on any major decision was split as far as what we wanted to do. We looked at options of purchasing existing buildings. We looked at one building in Lumberton. We looked at one, that's when Judge Caraway was actually still the judge. I made a walkthrough with him on a building in Silsbee that we looked at. So we looked at all options, and like the judge said, the conclusion and the consensus of the court was to go the route we have. Whenever we first started talking about financing this building, I was for the idea of putting it on the ballot and having our citizens decide whether or not they wanted to do a bond. In other words, have a bond election on this. And once we, like the judge said, once we got our outside audit in, and I saw how much money that we had more available than what we thought, then I went with the idea of having the amount financed, and then also paying for the rest with our carryover. In other words, going with certificates of obligations on a certain amount, 1.1, and then us paying the rest with our contingency fund. We are currently under contract with an architect, LaBeach Architect out of Beaumont on this, and we have a construction manager at risk that we're in the process of getting finalized on a contract with them, which is Daniels Construction here in Coops. I've been in several meetings with representatives from both companies, and we're ready to get started on this project. I think that this is going to be a successful project. We have the floor plan over here that LaBeach has provided for us, and then one of the pictures over here. I don't know if there's anything else that the judge didn't cover that I might could add to, but with all this being said so far, has that answered your questions, or do you have any more? Rod, you have anything? Anybody else?
I do, but I kinda wanted to hear what y'all had to say.
Okay. Danny, anybody else have anything right now where we're at? Any questions or anything? We've had several meetings with every department head that's over there at the annex before we finalize this forward plan to kind of get an idea of what they provided to the public, what they needed if we went with a new building. So we have narrowed it down. There was request that was gonna take us more than the 10,000 foot than what we wanted to stay with, but we have narrowed it down to this. And with the hallways, with the air conditioned rooms and everything, we've got it about to 10,000, a little over 10,000 square foot, which is originally what we wanted. So I'm satisfied with what we have now. I think it's gonna be a successful project, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Kirkendall.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kirkendall?
Well, I appreciate the court, breaking with tradition of daytime meetings and having an evening meeting. That's one of the things we did to try to get support and get people to come. Normally we have them during the day, and so since Judge McDaniel's been on board, we've done this a few times, and so I appreciate that. Other than that, it's getting down to, trying to refurbish a 62-year-old building with, what's it called, asbestos and what have you, versus building a new one. I was alone voting no on letting it go to a bond issue because residents had asked me to let them vote on it, and so I honored that request. And saying that, it has been a 2-year process that we've had great discussion on. And when I say great discussion, it's because we've disagreed, and we've looked at options, and I think professionally gotten to a place of, okay, this is the best choice for the citizens of the county, because I start thinking 30, 40 years down the road, what's going to be the best, no matter who occupies the chairs, and I think that it's a good plan. It's a plan, so when the county grows, one of the things the county has done, the county has grown, and it's been hard for us to absorb the growth numerically, because our mindsets are still back over here, and I'm guilty of that too, and don't like change, but have to institute change everywhere I turn around. And so I think we have a good long-term plan that we could add on to that place. Even with the challenges we have here at the courthouse, when the air goes down, I mean, a lot of what we have is really old. And who was it from Entergy?
Buffet?
Mr. Bethea came at the last meeting, and his request was that the officials not wait so long before we do upgrades or new buildings, and I agree with that as well. But I think we have a very conservative court who don't like to spend money. If you knew how much we disagreed with each other, I think we're always trying to get blood from a turnip, and we're always trying to get 2 cents out of a penny. And so we've had great debate, and I appreciate Mr. Goodson being available tonight and his firm, because we've had the opportunity to question them many times throughout Commissioners Court, and appreciate Ken's involvement with that. Been on the court for 20 years, and so he's had some really good questions to ask. And so I just echo what Commissioner Cooper said, and the fact that I wish that we had more participation come. And so I wrote my in-laws into being here tonight so they could come and be part of this process, because it's important. And I think it's important for the citizens to know how hard this body of people work for the citizens. And so with that, that's really all I got. I'm excited in the fact that it's only 1/10 of 1 cent, with the challenges that are ahead financially in the world, and because we could probably even absorb that in budgetary cuts or whatever if times got tough. And so so I appreciate that, and appreciate all the lead on that, and again, Mr. Goodson's firm working with us to try to find something that would fit within our budget, so we're not stretching every month to try to meet that budget. And Ken, do you remember the potential savings on electrical, or just on the electric bill from next door to what we're gonna be building?
It's
It'll
gonna
pay
be-
that 1/10 of 1 cent, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but I'm sorry, go ahead.
It'll more than pay for what, the increased cost of this thing is. It's a very inefficient, I've been on the court 20 years, and we have dealt with the air conditioning system and put portable air conditioners in the offices. That old building designed for a hospital, 40-something thousand square feet, has been a headache forever. And I say forever, ever since I've been on the court. Roof problems, air conditioner problems. We know that there's asbestos in the floor and in the ceiling. And I think the mold was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And the employees having concerns about their health and welfare. But the fact that we weren't using but just a small amount of that, anyone that's gone through that building would be amazed. The old operating rooms are still there, the morgue is still there. Every office that had something they didn't need over here it's just become a catch-all for junk over there. And with the age on the building, when this problem developed, and I do appreciate the way that Judge Caraway approached it, and he got the future Judge McDaniel involved in the process before he ever became judge. And this thing has been well thought out. We've looked at every avenue as to go in there and spend money to make that building feasible for a number of years. And when the prices came back that you're looking at $1.5 million, $2 million to maybe add 10-year life to a building, it just did not make sense to spend the taxpayers' money like that. And to me, the main thing is that building has always been a hodgepodge for the public to use. You know, if you ask someone where do you need to go, you go down that corridor, you go down that corridor, and you turn right, and you go to another corridor.
Get lost.
I mean, it is a maze over there. This building is gonna be functional for the public. It will be modern for the services, especially the services we furnish in indigent healthcare, WIC, and health services, things like this. It will be tailored to those things with modern equipment. As the gentleman said, and as the court knows, we have tried many ways to publicize this thing. We have had articles in the Sylvie Bee, we've had them in the Lumberton Ledger. The Beaumont Enterprise has given it quite a bit of coverage. We held public hearings in 6 different communities. I was a part of 3 of them in Saratoga, Sour Lake, and Pinewood. And Nevin was with me at Sour Lake, as he previously said. One of the meetings, the one at Pinewood, was of particular interest to me because you have a country club community that they don't typically use the services that we will be providing in this building. And so I was interested to see how they would react to the proposal that we go build a new building and spend, $1.8 million and things like this. After I went through the presentation with them, well, actually before it's over, the unanimous opinion amongst the people, and we had about something like, 18 people there. We had all public there. There was no county employees there except me. And their unanimous reaction was, why do you even mess with that old hospital over there? Why are you waiting? Why don't you go ahead and get this building built while building costs are cheap, while you can afford to do it and get on with it? So I was particularly pleased at the reaction from that community on this, because I felt that if there's gonna be a movement grow to say, hey, let's either use rented buildings or try to do the old hospital, it would come from that particular group right there. So I do commend the court for all the thought. Nubbin has dealt with the planning, and there's probably never been a project that I've been familiar with where so many people were brought in, everyone from the different departments that were gonna use these buildings, and so much input on it, and to try to keep the cost of this building down. And I think it'd be a great asset for the people of Hardin County.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Roberts?
once again, being the last, I don't have to say much because it's already been said. We as a whole, as a group, we looked at several different options, several different ways to go about doing it. We talked to the employees. We did everything that we possibly could to make sure we were doing the right thing. And I wholeheartedly believe that we are doing the right thing because of the situation. It's not gonna be a over expenditure for the county. It's gonna be something we can't afford to do, and we need to do it. And that's where I stand on it. I had concerns in the beginning for the cost for the county, budgetary concerns. But once I looked at it and we all got together and spoke with different people and saw how it was gonna come about, it's just the right thing to do, for citizens and for employees.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Judge,
Ms. Gore? I'm sorry, Ms. Gore, do you have anything? Commissioner, yes,
if
sir.
I could add one thing, the gentleman also had a question as to why we decided to build over here instead of over there. And this is another situation that our topic that has come up in the past. We're eventually gonna have to do something with that. I mean, we just can't let that sit there. And that's gonna be a cost to the county as well. So, for the time being, because we did have this property over here and had purchased the additional property, the court decided to do that. But eventually, and the taxpayers will definitely have to know about that too. We're gonna have to do something with that over there. It can't just sit there, but that's gonna be on down the road. And this building, I think Commissioner Kirkendall, the Judge One, touched on it, but this building is designed for future development. When the county grows, we can expand the way this is gonna be designed. We can expand on over there, so that's another reason why it was decided to do over there instead of at the current location.
And next Monday, on June the 27th, we'll have a regular meeting, and I'm gonna have a line item on the agenda that we go ahead and purchase. There's, I think, an additional 4 lots, so that we do have room to expand the building. We have enough to expand it a little bit after it's built, but I wanna make sure that 40 or 50 years from now, when it needs to grow even further, that the land is there for the county to do just that. So I actually haven't told him yet, but I'm gonna ask Commissioner Cooper if he'll speak with Ms. Donaldson that owns that property. But I can't ask him to do it till I have permission from the court, and I'm gonna ask for that permission next Monday. Ms. Sage, do you have anything you wanna add? Okay, before I turn it over and ask for any public comments, I'd like to ask Mr. Goodson, do you have anything you'd like to say regarding the financing or any previous discussions we've had regarding the way that we're financing and paying for the construction of this building?
And maybe talk about the county's financial standing and what have you.
Yeah, my name is Guy Goodson. I'm with the Germer firm in Beaumont, and we just act as special counsel to the county commissioners court in matters such as this, where they're trying to proceed with obtaining financing in the marketplace. Just real quickly, these are called certificates of obligation. They're a debt instrument that's authorized under the Texas Local Government Code for cities and counties. And what effectively happens is it's fairly narrow, the projects that we work for. In this one, we're going to spend 100% of that $1.1 million in the building. It's no furniture, fixtures, equipment. This is all hard costs in constructing, remodeling a county or a city building. That's the structure of this type of transaction. What Commissioner Kirkendall was speaking to is over time, because of the prudent financial management of the county, you will, and the debt rate that you've had for quite a number of years, you have what is considered an excellent rate in the marketplace. As any of us know, we go borrow money, it's like, what's your credit score? Well, your credit score at this county is very good because of 2 things. One, you haven't issued much debt over the years, and 2, none of that debt has ever not been repaid exactly on time. So the county has a very good rating. This series, because $1.1 million, not to me or any one of you, seems small, but to the municipal bond market or certificate market, it's a small series. So this is going to go out, and we anticipate that it will be bought by either a local bank or a regional bank, and it's got a very short set of maturities, which means it's not going to go out that many years. And also, it's non-callable, which means is that they don't pay the bonds off early. They pay them in accordance with the maturity schedule that's in the bond order. So when we say all that is, that makes it very favorable to the bondholders. They don't have to worry about someone calling their bonds early because they can refinance it cheaper. You'll finance this at a very low interest rate because the market is still good right now for the debt financing. So what I do is paper the transaction. They have a financial advisor with U.S. Capital Advisors out of Houston that has represented the county. We worked with the county in 2007 on that bond issue. We helped them refinance with Angela and the court's approval the jail debt, because we were actually able to lower the interest rate from 2007 to when it was refinanced, just because the county's credit rating has improved. And so with that I'm happy to answer a question concerning the financing, but the plan is right now, if the court approves several agenda items next week that we'll have to proceed, then what my obligation is, once the court executes all these documents, every bond issue in Texas has to be approved by our Texas Attorney General's office. So everything goes to the office of the Attorney General, and we usually allow for about a month in there. And since we have a holiday, and the Attorney General and them actually take a few days as well for holidays, we plan on closing and funding this around August the 2nd. No interest is payable until the bonds are actually delivered. So even though they authorize the debt next Monday, no interest accrues on the bond, on the certificates, until they're actually placed in the hand of the bond purchaser and they hand you all the money. That $1.1 million will go into a special construction fund account and may only be used for what we say hard construction costs for the building. We're only pledging taxes. We're not making any revenues or anything else pledged to this. So for that reason, it's a pretty square box we have to fit into, and that is that the money is going to be spent first and foremost. It will be spent entirely on the building. The makeup money for any thing will come from the surplus funds, as the courts indicate. So we're happy to answer your question.
Thank you, Mr. Goodson. I'd just like you to say too, how long have you been ready to hit go on this?
Well, you know, when you tell me the significant problems, and Commissioner Pelt is always real good about doing this on me pretty hard, and when he told me the level of problems that y'all had over there, again, almost 2 years ago, we've been ready to move forward. But we really do appreciate the fact, and I want to respect the audience's concern about the absence of information. But one of the things I like to kid my client and your commissioner's court about is that because they've taken a really long time and parsed this out through a lot of communities, people to answer the questions. So sadly, if people weren't able to get to one of those public meetings, and because they've taken a long time to do this, some people, in fact, I was out at Pinewood, as Commissioner Pelt knows, I do work for that water district out there, and I told them where I was going to be, because they were thinking about having a special meeting tonight. I said, sorry, I'm already spoken for. The president of the board out there, who the commissioner knows well, said, I thought y'all already got that bond issue done. He said, Guy, when you did our bond issue, we only took about 3 or 4 months. I said, this court spends a lot of time making sure they've turned over every rock before they decide to proceed with the project. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for that. At this time, I'd like to ask if any of the citizens that are present have any questions. Yes, sir.
This one, I've got two for Mr. Goodson. First one would be length of this,
The proposed bond issue.
It's 10 years.
10-year bond.
any interest rate?
I don't, Mr. Gilly, I think, gave y'all an indication of interest rate.
2.15.
2.15 is of the interest rate that the financial advisor is suggesting. It'll be a bid rate. It will go out and be a competitively bid rate. And then what they do, they'll bid each maturity, and then they'll aggregate that to determine the lowest net effective interest rate.
And I have a question for Mrs. Gore. Your surplus money that you have, what kind of interest are you drawing on the 3.9?
Right behind you is the treasurer. She has that information. Do you have it with you?
We draw, tax pool keep it in Wells Fargo, it's 0.09%. Our county money is government money, we have to be under a depository contract with the banks, so.
And Rod, whenever we went out for bids last, March for banking services, and Wells Fargo was the only bank that bid on us, we have to keep a certain amount of money in the bank, otherwise they start charging us fees, and so we don't wanna pay any fees on every check we write or anything else. So we have to keep a certain amount in Wells Fargo, and the rest we leave in, tax pool.
Well, it is,
And we try to put our money wherever the highest interest rate is, but sometimes we can't move enough over into tax pool because we have to keep the amount that we need in Wells Fargo.
you know, sometimes the interest rate on money that you borrow is so low that it's, you know, it's not worth using some of your emergency funds if you're at that rate. I have a couple of more concerns.
Yes, sir.
One is, I can tell you why you have a low, group of people turning out, and it's the wording of certificate of obligation. Most people don't quite grasp that it's nothing more than a bond election. And I believe if this was put before the voters, you know, you'd have more input, you'd have more people, participating, because you're asking people, well, you're not asking on a certificate of obligation, you're just basically gonna do it. Now, they got 30 days to file a petition if they wanna bring it to a vote.
Right.
But y'all have been divided on this for quite some time. And now you're all together, and y'all keep saying you want the citizens to have input. It's just hard to understand why we're not having a bond election versus a certificate of obligation, because this is not what a certificate of obligation was set up.
Right, and for me, Rod, what happened is, I gave my word for the bond issue, and that's what I supported. And then, once I got defeated in the vote, I knew that it was time just to move forward, and, the best way that we can and participate. So for me, getting together with everybody, is just simply trying to move forward in the best interest, but totally understand. And it was a long vote on that, and, but in saying that, I think I asked Mr. Goodson about the rate and length of terms. Don't think it would be much different if it was a bond issue or certificate, correct? So, for me, it's about getting on board to try to do this without being an antagonist. For me, not for the citizens.
Well, I understand, but, you know, we're fixing to do something, and y'all haven't even set the tax rate yet.
Correct.
And there's people, not necessarily in all communities in this county, but I can assure you that in Silsbee, between the appraisal district going up in property values, and then they're paying for 2 bonds right now, there's people that are hurting just due to taxes, and some of my family members are some of them that are, you know, having to pay for all that. And I know 1/10 of 1 cent is, you know, or 1% is not much, but it just, I don't understand why this wasn't put on a bond election.
Right.
I understand your concern, Rod, and that was the, majority of the court had decided to go that direction until we realized we've got to do something quick. And we can't have an election anytime soon to do it. Honestly, we were ready to start doing something back around January or February of this year, but we wanted to wait till we had our audit and make sure that we were in good financial standing as we thought we were. And once we had that, my mind was made up to let's proceed. And as far as what you said, as far as that we made the decision to go ahead, if this room was packed full of people saying we don't want you to do it, that would change. And we have not had that.
No, and you know, this is it, you're not gonna have it, but, you know, it's just like that dome over there, it got done, and, there was no opposition till after it got completed, and then everybody voiced their concern.
Yes, sir. And we're trying to avoid that, but you and I both know that everybody's not gonna, it's not gonna happen just that way, but we've done our best to avoid it as much as
And I
possible.
understand the building's needed, and I do think y'all done your homework and all that. It's just, I I look at the construction of that, and I know what the dollar figure is per square foot. It doesn't take a whole lot of genius to figure out the math on that.
Yes, sir.
But it's hard for me to grasp us talking to one contractor and not going out for bids,
We did.
and that one contractor was low bid.
Mr. Peld and Mr. Cooper were on that committee.
We narrowed it to,
We narrowed it to three and then selected one based upon the fact that he was low, and he also had built the jail very successfully, and he's a taxpayer, and they have a stellar reputation in this area, having built some big facilities. And so, you know, we felt confident that he was the right person, and we went a construction manager at risk. And every single facet of this building over there will be bid out. And then a construction manager at risk, they have the option of meeting the low bid. But everything on that building will be bid out, from the foundation on, all the way through to the carpet, if they're putting carpet in it, at the end. So it's a low bid building is what it will be.
Well, I understand that, and I'm looking at the outside construction of it, and, you know, basically, if you're gonna build a building, that is about as cheap if you decide to go with that type of building. But if you look at what Koontz has built for the kids, down here at the, Head Start buildings, you know, it's a brick front with a metal building, basically.
That's what this is.
That's what this is.
Well, you can't tell by the
Yeah,
picture.
that's what it is.
Okay,
That's the cheapest building that you can build,
right.
a durable building with an estimated 50-year life. We looked at a lot, and here, just like on the company to manage the construction, we looked at a number of architects. I mean, we take bids or proposals, you don't take a bid as such on professional services, as you probably well know, but we look at everything. We've spent more time on this building than I would anticipate, having been with the school system at Hardin Jefferson, president of the board for a number of years. We spent more time on a $2 million building than most schools are gonna spend on a $30–40 million bond issue. And that's another thing, if you pull, which the figures are available, and you look at all the school districts in this area and the cities, and you look at their bonded indebtedness per capita and per dollar of their budget and stuff, Hardin County is so far down at the bottom, it's not even, yeah. And I have talked to a wide range of people, bankers and business people, and I've yet to run into one that does not think it's a good deal for Hardin County to issue these certificates of obligation and go ahead and get this project done before something would happen on the national scene, that they would have to deal with all this printed money that they've printed, and inflation would jump up, and these building costs and stuff would jump up, and interest rates would jump up. We live in some very uncertain times. Now, the other question I think I thought you were fixing to ask it, was why don't you take that surplus fund and just go ahead and build this building?
No,
Oh, okay, because the reason there is this court tries to maintain, and this is just kind of a loose deal, we try to keep our surplus fund around $3 million. When I went on the court, it was negative. We were having to borrow tax money on tax obligation on our tax revenues in order to meet our working capital. Well, thankfully, we've built to where we have a fair surplus fund or contingency fund or whatever you want to call it. But we found in Hurricane Rita and also in Hurricane Ike, you need some reserves, because Texas has a 30-day law that you pay your bills in 30 days. And like in Rita, if we had not had some working capital, we would have been in bad shape. Now, it turned out that we got 100% grants on it, but we had to pay the contract, and there was times we had something like $5 million that time. There were times that our cash flow was way down, but we had to pay our bills in order to get the services to clean the county up. So we have looked at every avenue on this thing, and you know, we're putting $900,000 in, which I feel is it. We've tried to take a balanced approach between what could happen to the county and we would need some money
well, and
versus these interest rates.
I was just going the opposite direction, you know, at 2.15%, you know, do you hold on to your money or,
Yeah.
or use it? And the thing, I guess, that the next part that I'm concerned about is we're gonna build a building, and then y'all have already alluded to the thought process that we're gonna have to do something with that building. And some buildings are destroyed for free because that demolition company will surplus that material. That one is not gonna get done for free.
Right.
Have y'all got any kind of estimate on taking care of that?
I don't, as Commissioner Pelt said earlier, we have a lot of storage over there. It's been a catch-all. So once the people move into the new building, I foresee that there's still gonna be a lot of storage over there, and we're gonna need to build a storage building, and we'll pay for that. We're not gonna include any financing on that. Then we gotta get all the storage moved, and that's probably not gonna happen. I anticipate it'd take about a year to get everybody moved and then moved all the stuff that's stored over there into a new building after it's constructed. I mentioned this in the last public hearing. My hope is somebody comes along and wants to buy the place over there, and if so, I'd be interested in selling it if the rest of the court would agree to doing that.
I tried to give it to Mr. Bethea, but he didn't want it.
Yeah. And it's not gonna sell for a high dollar. Somebody's gonna come along and wanna buy it for a little or nothing just to have the property, and I would be all for that. And the understanding would be that they would have to demolish that building, and that would be part of it.
Right.
Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, I don't wanna see the building stand for 5, 10, 15 years. Sometime in the next 2 or 3 years, we're gonna have to address, if it doesn't sell, something happens, and then we'll have to address demolishing that building.
Well, I don't even have a ballpark what it would cost.
I do, I figure it'd be about $500,000.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, and
I don't think it'll be more than that, but somewhere in that area.
But, maybe something to consider, holding that $500,000 in your surplus and asking for a little more on your certificate of obligation. That way you don't have to come back and go through this, because I get the idea that y'all are trying to be transparent. And-
Absolutely.
But another $500,000, in 2 years or 3 years, you could possibly avoid having to go through this process to get that tore down if you hold the money back now.
Problem is, you're the only one that said that.
Yeah.
Out of anybody
I
that's
was
really
gonna
given
say,
any real input.
I guarantee you though, there are citizens out there with the same concern that you brought up, cause I drink coffee with them every morning. They just don't show up to these meetings, and every topic you brought up is legitimate, and
And we appreciate it.
yeah.
We really do.
They're good thoughts, they're thoughts that we have gone through on this court. I've had people tell me, say, you ought to pay for that whole building with certificates of obligation, because you'll never get money cheaper than what you're getting today. Because I know Debbie's sitting in the back there, when I came on this court, we were paying 5, 6% to get money to pay the bills around here from September to January 1st, when we started getting taxes in. It's a balancing act, but this court does not want to take on any more debt than it has to. And because we realize that in certain times that we're in right now, we could need this surplus money. We might need to just keep this county going. So it's just a balancing act, and one that you can sell 3 commissioners on, and hopefully 4 or 5. But you've had some excellent points, and at the 3 meetings that I held, and I think probably the rest of them, we had some good questions asked, especially out of Pinewood. They had a lot of, you have a lot of people that have some financing knowledge. And there were several out there that thought we weren't borrowing enough. But as I told them, there were some people that thought we was borrowing too much. So you never know, but.
All right. Mr. Renaud?
Well, he asked most the same question. My question for mostly about that building, and to make sure that we're not gonna have a building sitting around here forever, and it's gonna be an eyesore. And my other question would be, are you sure if you use your parking lot up over here for a building, are you sure that you're gonna be able to sell there, or will you have to have a parking lot over there?
We're not going across the street. It's over here, cat a corner from the jail.
We're not gonna be using the parking lot.
I understood that, but people do use that parking lot. A lot of times I come up here on Monday and Tuesday, and it's got a lot of cars.
It'd still be serviceable.
It's gonna still be a parking lot. We're not taking up the parking lot.
What is that,
We're
red?
building totally out of the parking lot.
If you go down the street right in front of the jail, it's the parking lot to your left, and it will be built on the south side of that parking lot.
The building will front on that parking lot, but the county still has
Yeah.
property over here that could be a parking lot.
Yeah.
You know, we've got.
I don't
separate-
think I was on the same page as you, Mr. Renault. I was still talking about the hospital parking lot or the
The,
annex
uh,
building
no.
parking
The
lot.
side of the building will actually be, the view from the street. And the front of the building is gonna be facing the north.
Anything else, Mr. Renault?
No, that was my biggest concern. I was concerned that we weren't accounting for how much this is gonna cost, but you said it's $500,000, so you have accounted for it. Did you get that? Did you get anybody to estimate that, or you just kinda guessing that?
That is a number that Jackie Ellis was our previous purchasing agent, and she gave that to me, and I don't know where she got it from.
I think it came from Daniels Construction.
It may have,
We asked them to give us a idea of what it would be to take the building down. Of course, there is an unknown in there, and that's asbestos. You know, you just don't know, but, what to do with that old building has been discussed, and I think that what we all agree is we would try to sell it. Probably not very likely, sell it for the salvage, that somebody would sell the salvage. Now, the judge has come up with the idea of throwing the land in with it. That may be a more attractive thing for somebody to buy it. The other was then, what would you do? What kind of bid could we get if they got the salvage, but yet what would they charge us to go with that salvage to take it down? And then last resort, what would we just have to pay to take it down? And, you know, we may have to do it in stages. I think that when this building is built, everything's out of it, we'll probably secure that building. We'll have to secure it where, you know, it's not a hazard to the public. But then we'll start working on options. We may have to take part of it down this year, part of it down next year, and, but the goal will be to get it clear. And once that property is clear, then it will become an asset to the county, a future asset, because at some time, if this county continues to grow, TxDOT says in 25 years, the population of the state of Texas will double. And the majority of that population is going to come within 100 miles of the coast. So somewhere along the line, Hardin County could probably use that property if we can get it clear without too much money. And there was, when we built this extension to the jail, there was a great discussion on this court, and Wayne wasn't on at that time, but I'm sure he remembers all the discussions as to taking all this area over here for a jail. There were thoughts at that time, if that property had been cleared, then I think this court, or that court, would have opted to move a justice center over there and get that jail completely away from your main courthouse. But there's all kind of things that, you know, this court has looked at in the future, and I think, you know, they've done a pretty good job of it, but we do not want it to be an eyesore. And
but it may be for a couple of years, 2-3 years.
I think it will be.
But I don't anticipate it'll be any longer than that.
Yeah.
Mr. Odom? Is that correct?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
I was trying to remember what I was gonna ask you.
I had the
I
same
need a
problem.
short explanation of what a certificate of obligation is, how it works, because I'm sorry, I worked in construction work, petrochemical, and I had no business with dealings of legal stuff like that. Well, how does that work? How does the money gotten? Do we, according to our tax roll, do we pay money according to our tax roll at 1/10% and buy the certificates and keep them for 10 years and then cash them in? Or just how does that work?
Mr. Goodson?
A certificate of obligation is only different on the municipal bond on the way you style it at the top. It's the same thing as if this court had issued a municipal bond. They're delivered in series, so this $1.1 million will be spread over that 10 years, but they're not put in at equal maturities. As the judge said, in order to blend your old debt and this new debt and to not raise the tax rate from 2017, which is the first maturity on this particular certificate, out to 2023, it's a slow and gradual increase. Then when that debt pays off, larger amounts are paid off in the last years of this bond issue. So it's just like a mortgage in that you're paying back a principal and interest. Instead of monthly, you pay back principal once a year and you pay interest twice a year. We hand them, actually initially, these paper bonds, you know, that have a face amount and a maturity, and they hand us the $1.1 million at a closing, and it goes immediately into the county's construction
But
fund.
what I pay is to the taxes, basically to the tax office, is that what I do?
What,
It's
yes,
on my tax roll as to what I pay?
Right.
And that's the way, I don't have a, I mean, they used to have bonds that, I know when you did a church or something, best I remember, was when you bought a bond, they gave you a paper bond, and you kept it for however long till it matured, then you cashed it in.
same thing will be true here. There will actually be a paper bond for each one of these 10 maturities.
But
that
we
will-
don't get it though, is what I'm saying.
No, it goes to the purchaser of the bonds, and then that person pays it in. What's pledged to the repayment of the bonds is just a tax pledge.
Okay, I just didn't know how it worked, I've
Yes.
never been familiar with it.
Quite right. I've answered it.
And just to try to explain a little further, we're already paying, this year, we'll pay $292,890 on our current certificate of obligation for the jail expansion project that was started in '07. Next year, that will increase by $47,000 to pay for the jail and the annex project. And each year, the jail note comes down a little bit, the building note goes up, but it stays the same across the board until 2023 when the jail's paid off. And then that's when this note really increases on the annex project to finish paying it off for those last 3 years. So we've tried to, and this was actually a recommendation made by Mr. Goodson and Mr. Gilly, who's our financial advisor, to do it this way, to limit the amount that is burdened on the county and the taxpayer for the first 7 years of the term. Then the last 3 years, our note would be $303,000, $307,000, and $306,000, and then it pays off.
And
Yes,
two,
sir, absolutely.
2 years ago, we refinanced the jail, and I think saved the taxpayers $150,000. Around $150,000.
And it's possible that this can be done the same way.
Correct.
I'd be surprised
Very,
if it
very,
dropped,
very unlikely.
if it dropped below 2.15, but if it did, I know.
It's getting pretty low, isn't it?
Yes,
Very
sir.
unlikely.
Mr. Brooks, you have any questions? Do you?
No.
Okay, Ms. Bean? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that, I wouldn't, if I were you, take it personally that there's so little support, because that's just typical of, people have apathy, this country's riddled with it. I mean, look at election days, I've looked enough elections to see how many people do not vote, and it always makes me sad. But I also wanna just remind everybody here, and some of you might not know, this land that this annex could be built on belonged to a very legendary public official, and I think he would be very proud of what's going to be hopefully built on the land that he owned, that being Booger Richardson. He was a DA for many years and county attorney for many years. I think it's kind of a tie with the past to the present to the future, which is something that he approved of, he would approve of.
Well, thank you. I meant to tell you something a while ago, Rod. It does show on here that the brick only goes halfway up, and then you'll see the metal building. Well, I don't know, I'll just say it. Hope he's okay with me putting his name out there. Mr. McKim and several others with the Historical Commission have asked that we brick the whole front and any other part that's gonna be visible from the street, which is gonna be almost all of it. We don't know for sure if we're gonna be able to do that, but we're hoping to. As it stands right now, this is the design. And it is built, to be able to add on to that east end and continue going as it needs to grow in the future. Are there any other questions? Any other comments by the court? All right, if there's nothing else, I move we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner
Thank you,
Cooper
everybody.
and a second by Commissioner Kirkendall.
Thank you. Y'all ready to go eat?